A fortified Ukrainian defensive position in eastern sector. 0 to 30 hours during clear freezing night, temperature minus 18 Celsius with no wind. Cloudless sky providing excellent visibility for night vision and thermal systems. A Russian combined arms assault force attempting to seize fortified strongpoint controlling critical road junction. 834 personnel organized in assault waves, 512 infantry in 4 companies, 147 supporting weapons troops with mortars and heavy machine guns, 93 armored vehicle crews operating 18 tanks and 12 infantry fighting vehicles, 82 command and support personnel. Force represented regiment's main assault capability with mission to capture strongpoint by dawn, enabling exploitation toward objectives deeper in Ukrainian rear. Capture of position would create vulnerability in Ukrainian defensive line, allowing breakthrough operations. Ukrainian defenders numbered 273 personnel, 183 infantry and reinforced company, 47 artillery forward observers and coordinators, 26 drone operators, 17 command and logistics personnel. Position was fortified over 3 months with concrete bunkers, interconnected trench systems, pre-registered artillery defensive fires, minefields covering approaches, pre-positioned anti-tank systems. Intelligence assessment indicated Russian forces would attack during dark period using night vision advantage, believing Ukrainian defenders were less capable in night operations. Counterattack plan was developed anticipating assault using strategy of allowing penetration, then isolating and destroying with artillery, drones and armored reserves positioned 5 kilometers behind front line. Ukrainian mechanized brigade had 2 reserve companies with 24 armored vehicles staged for immediate counterattack once Russian forces were committed to assault. 5 hours and 43 minutes after Russian assault commenced, 719 of 834 attackers would be casualties. 547 dead from artillery, drone strikes, direct fire, or hypothermia during failed withdrawal. 172 wounded and captured. 115 escaped, but without weapons or organization. Equipment worth $38 million would be destroyed, including all 18 tanks and 12 infantry fighting vehicles. The assault force that represented regiment's offensive capability would be effectively destroyed, creating operational gap requiring months to reconstitute. This happened days ago during period of clear cold weather, enabling night operations with thermal systems. Battlefield remains as frozen testimony to failed assault. Strategic implications of attacking fortified positions with inadequate preparation continue affecting Russian operational doctrine. This is what occurred during those 5 hours when assault became slaughter. Fortified defensive positions have dominated warfare since trenches demonstrated their effectiveness in World War I. Properly constructed fortifications with interlocking fields of fire, covered approaches, obstacle integration, and artillery support create advantages heavily favoring defenders. Attackers typically require 3-to-1 numerical superiority to overcome fortified defense. Russian assault with only 3-to-1 ratio against prepared Ukrainian position was inadequate from outset. Modern thermal imaging and night vision eliminated darkness as cover for attackers. Traditional doctrine assumed night attacks achieved surprise because defenders couldn't see approaching forces. Modern thermal systems detect body heat in vehicle engines clearly at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Night vision amplifies ambient light, allowing observation in conditions appearing pitch black to naked eye. Technology transformed night from attackers' advantage to defenders' opportunity. Ukrainian forces had prepared defensive position, specifically anticipating assault. Bunkers were constructed with reinforced concrete, providing protection against artillery and direct fire. Trench systems connected firing positions, allowing movement under cover. Observation posts on elevated terrain gave commanding views of approaches. Minefields were emplaced in belts covering likely assault routes with anti-personnel and anti-tank mines mixed to defeat both infantry and armor. Artillery coordination was sophisticated with forward observers positioned to direct fires across entire defensive zone. Fire missions were pre-calculated for every sector with coordinates stored in digital fire control systems. 3 artillery battalions were dedicated to supporting position, 54 guns total with ammunition stockpiled allowing sustained fire for extended periods. Counter-battery radar would detect Russian artillery and direct suppression fires. Drone operations were integrated comprehensively. Small reconnaissance drones provided continuous surveillance of approaches. Larger fixed-wing drones gave wide-area coverage. FPV strike drones with anti-tank warheads were staged for immediate launch against armored targets. Communications relay drones ensured connectivity. Thermal cameras on all platforms provided clear imaging despite darkness. Armored reserves were positioned strategically 5 kilometers behind front line. 2 mechanized companies with 24 BMP infantry fighting vehicles carrying 240 infantry. Mission was counterattacking once Russian assault was committed and disrupted by defensive fires. Timing was critical. Too early and Russian forces could adjust. Too late and position might be overrun. Commanders practiced timing with multiple rehearsals. Russian assault force assembled in attack positions at midnight, 2 kilometers from Ukrainian lines. Infantry organized in 4 waves. First wave would breach obstacles and suppress defenses. Second wave would exploit and widen breach. Third wave would clear trenches. Fourth wave would consolidate captured position. Tanks and infantry fighting vehicles would provide fire support initially, then move forward once infantry secured foothold. At 0230, Russian artillery preparation commenced. 120 guns fired 20-minute barrage targeting Ukrainian positions with high explosive and smoke rounds. Bombardment was heavy, but Ukrainian bunkers were constructed to withstand sustained artillery, reinforced concrete roofs, multiple chambers providing redundancy, ventilation systems preventing gas accumulation. Personnel sheltered during bombardment, then moved to fighting positions when it lifted. At 0250, Russian artillery shifted to deeper targets and assault waves began advancing. First wave of 128 infantry moved forward in tactical formation using night vision equipment. They crossed line of departure and began traversing 2 kilometers of open terrain toward Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian observation posts tracked them immediately with thermal imaging. Body heat signatures showed clearly against frozen ground at -18 Celsius. Ukrainian forces held fire initially, allowing Russians to approach unaware they were observed. At 1,000 meters, Russian infantry entered outer minefield belt. First mine detonation killed 3 soldiers. Anti-personnel mine fragmented upward shredding bodies. More detonations followed as advancing infantry triggered additional mines. Officers ordered continuing advance despite casualties. Breaching minefields required accepting losses. At 800 meters, Ukrainian artillery opened fire with time-on-target mission. Shells from 54 guns arrived simultaneously, creating saturation barrage across assault zone. High explosive rounds detonated, creating overlapping fragmentation patterns. Soldiers caught in open were shredded by steel fragments. Some were killed instantly. Others were wounded and incapacitated. Surviving soldiers went to ground seeking any cover. Artillery continued firing and rolling barrage, moving back and forth across approach zone, preventing movement or evacuation of wounded. Russian casualties mounted rapidly. Bodies and wounded scattered across frozen field. First assault wave was effectively destroyed before reaching Ukrainian trenches. Survivors attempted withdrawing, but continued artillery fire caused additional casualties during retreat. Second assault wave advanced at 0320, attempting to exploit smoke cover and chaos. 132 infantry moved forward while Russian tanks and fighting vehicles provided covering fire. Ukrainian defenders responded with anti-tank missiles, engaging armored vehicles. Konkurs and Stugnaw missiles launched from concealed positions, striking tanks at ranges where Russian forces couldn't identify launch points. First tank struck at 0323 suffered mobility kill. Missile destroyed track and road wheel assembly, immobilizing vehicle. Crew attempted repairs under fire, but Ukrainian snipers with thermal scopes began engaging crew members emerging from vehicle. Tank commander was killed while assessing damage. Driver was wounded while attempting to exit. Remaining crew abandoned tank and fled, leaving it burning. Within 15 minutes, 9 tanks were destroyed or immobilized. Infantry fighting vehicles fared worse. Lighter armor provided minimal protection against anti-tank missiles. Penetrations created explosions inside troop compartments, killing transported infantry. Some vehicles were struck multiple times as operators ensured complete destruction. Second assault wave reached minefield at 500 meters and began taking casualties from anti-personnel mines. Simultaneously, Ukrainian infantry opened fire with machine guns and automatic rifles from protected firing positions. Concentrated fire from multiple positions created interlocking fields cutting down advancing soldiers. Thermal imaging allowed precise targeting. Individual soldiers showed clearly and could be engaged at ranges exceeding traditional night combat distances. Russian infantry went to ground and attempted returning fire, but couldn't identify Ukrainian positions. Firing from bunker embrasures produced minimal signature, visible to Russian night vision. Some soldiers fired randomly toward suspected positions, wasting ammunition. Others remained prone seeking cover, but frozen ground provided none. Temperature at -18°C created additional threat. Soldiers lying motionless on frozen ground lost body heat rapidly. Third assault wave advanced at 0400, attempting to relieve pressure on second wave. 144 infantry moved forward, but Ukrainian artillery had adjusted fires, creating barrier between waves. Third wave took heavy casualties, crossing beaten zone, and became intermixed with remnants of second wave. Chain of command degraded as officers were killed or wounded and units lost cohesion. At 0430, FPV strike drones joined engagement, targeting command vehicles and concentrated personnel. Thermal imaging made targeting simple. Command vehicles showed distinctive heat signatures from radio equipment and personnel concentration. Strikes destroyed 3 command vehicles within 10 minutes, killing 12 officers and disrupting coordination. Russian forces now lack both tactical control and ability to coordinate combined arms. Some Russian infantry reached Ukrainian trench line at 0445 after crossing 500 meters under fire. Approximately 47 soldiers from first 3 waves concentrated at forward trench, attempting to breach. Ukrainian defenders engaged with grenades and close-range fire. Hand-to-hand combat occurred in some trench sections. Brutal fighting with knives, entrenching tools, rifle butts. Russian soldiers fought desperately, having survived approach across deadly ground. Ukrainian defenders fought to prevent penetration. Fighting in trenches lasted 18 minutes before Russian soldiers were killed or captured. No significant penetration was achieved. Soldiers reaching trenches were too few and too disorganized to exploit. Ukrainian reinforcements moved through connecting trenches to threaten sections and counterattacked with grenades and automatic fire at close range. Result was one-sided, as defenders had protection and organization, while attackers were exposed and scattered. Fourth assault wave never advanced. Commander assessed situation and determined continuing attack was futile. First 3 waves were destroyed or combat ineffective. Armored support was largely destroyed. Artillery preparation had been ineffective against fortified positions. No tactical advantage had been gained. Further attacks would produce casualties without meaningful progress toward objective. At 0515, Russian forces began withdrawing. Artillery provided smoke cover and suppressive fire, attempting to enable evacuation of wounded and recovery of equipment. Ukrainian artillery responded with counter-battery fire, suppressing Russian guns, and continued firing on approach zones, preventing orderly withdrawal. FPV drones pursued withdrawing forces, engaging vehicles and personnel clusters. Withdrawal became rout as organization collapsed. Wounded were abandoned because carrying them under fire was impossible. Equipment was left behind. Heavy weapons, ammunition, supplies scattered across battlefield. Soldiers fled individually or in small groups without coordination or leadership. Some became lost in darkness and wandered until captured or dying from exposure. Temperature at -18°C transformed withdrawal into nightmare. Soldiers exhausted from combat and adrenaline crash lost body heat rapidly. Sweat-soaked uniforms froze against skin. Soldiers who stopped to rest or treat wounds became hypothermic and stopped permanently. Bodies found days later were frozen in positions, suggesting they sat down briefly and never stood again. At 0530, Ukrainian armored reserves launched counterattack. 24 infantry fighting vehicles with 240 infantry moved forward from staging positions. Mission was destroying remnants of Russian assault force and securing terrain to prevent regrouping. Thermal imaging allowed tracking scattered Russian soldiers and engaging them systematically. Counterattack was overwhelming. Ukrainian armored vehicles with thermal sights engaged Russian personnel at ranges where return fire was ineffective. Infantry dismounted and cleared areas, methodically capturing wounded and scattered soldiers. Resistance was minimal. Russian forces were physically and psychologically shattered. Most surrendered immediately when encountered. Some attempted fleeing, but were tracked by thermal drones and engaged. By 0813, counterattack secured all terrain up to original Russian assembly areas. Battlefield was clear of organized Russian forces. Ukrainian positions were restored with no territory lost. Mission was complete. Russian assault had been defeated with devastating casualties, and Ukrainian counterattack had destroyed remnants. Casualty assessment revealed catastrophic losses. 547 Russian soldiers dead from artillery, direct fire, drone strikes, hypothermia, or execution during rout. Bodies were scattered across 2 kilometers of approach terrain and in trenches. Many were frozen solid in positions where they fell. Some showed signs of hypothermia death, paradoxical undressing, where victims removed clothing due to sensation of burning heat in terminal stages. 172 wounded were captured during counterattack or found during battlefield clearance. Injuries ranged from fragmentation wounds to severe burns from vehicle fires to frostbite from exposure. Many required amputations due to cold injury. Extremities frozen during hours lying wounded on frozen ground. Ukrainian medical facilities treated them, but outcomes were poor for severe cases. 115 soldiers escaped but arrived at Russian lines without weapons, organization, or cohesion. Most suffered minor wounds or frostbite. Some were in shock, unable to provide coherent reports of what happened. Others were physically intact but psychologically damaged from witnessing mass death and abandoning comrades. Equipment losses were total. All 18 tanks were destroyed or captured. Most burned after mobility kills or ammunition detonations. All 12 infantry fighting vehicles were destroyed. Command vehicles, supply trucks, heavy weapons, everything brought forward for assault was lost. Combined value exceeded $38 million, representing months of production and irreplaceable in short term. Strategic consequences were immediate and severe. Regiment that conducted assault was combat ineffective, requiring complete reconstitution. Planned offensive operations, depending on breakthrough at this point, were canceled. Other Russian units were reluctant to conduct similar attacks, having heard about disaster. Operational planning shifted to defensive posture in this sector. Psychological damage to survivors was profound. Soldiers who experienced assault and rout developed extreme reluctance to participate in similar operations. Some refused orders and faced disciplinary action. Others developed stress reactions, uncontrollable shaking, inability to sleep, flashbacks to bombardment and retreat. Unit cohesion degraded as soldiers lost confidence in leadership after being ordered into obvious kill zone. The assault demonstrated that hasty attacks against prepared defenses with inadequate preparation produce predictable disasters regardless of attackers' motivation or equipment. Russian planning was fundamentally flawed. Insufficient reconnaissance of defenses, inadequate artillery preparation, no effective counter to Ukrainian thermal imaging and artillery, no reserves to exploit any success, and no viable withdrawal plan if attack failed. Modern defensive warfare heavily favors prepared positions when defenders have thermal imaging, precision artillery, drone coordination, and armored reserves. Attackers cannot use darkness for cover. Obstacles channel movement into killing zones. Artillery creates impassable barriers. Drones provide continuous surveillance and precision strike. Armored reserves can counterattack before attackers consolidate gains. Integration creates synergistic effects, multiplying defensive capability. Temperature at -18°C was strategic factor equal to weapons. Soldiers conducting exhausting physical activity under combat stress lose body heat rapidly. Casualties unable to move lose heat even faster. Withdrawal in freezing conditions kills wounded who might survive in moderate weather. Cold created casualties independent of combat, making already difficult operation impossible. Ukrainian strategy of allowing penetration, then destroying with counterattack proved devastatingly effective. Allowing Russian forces to commit fully to assault before triggering main defensive fires and counterattack maximized casualties while minimizing risk to defenders. Russian forces trapped between defensive position and counterattack with no withdrawal route had no options except surrender or death. The frozen field that night was terrain feature. The killing ground was deliberately created through preparation, coordination, technology integration, and exploitation of enemies' predictable doctrine. Russian assault force entered expecting to overwhelm defenders through mass and shock. Instead, they found prepared defense with modern systems eliminating all tactical advantages. 834 soldiers began assault expecting to capture position by dawn. 5 hours later, 719 were casualties. Strategic objective remained Ukrainian-controlled, and regiment was combat ineffective. No heroism changed mathematics. No courage overcame preparation and technology. Result was mathematical inevitability. The night that was clear and cold, the slaughter was not. Every element was planned, prepared, and executed with precision, creating comprehensive kill zone where assault forces were systematically destroyed.